What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. Today we have this basket case of a CB550 in the shop. We're going to be doing a will it run because this is the next customer project we are starting on. So this is going to be a full build. I'm going to pull the engine out. We're going to be doing frame modifications. It's going to end up as a Classic Octane special, we're going to start to call it, because a lot of my 550 builds are very similar. So this is going to be actually a doppelganger to the Midnight Blue CB550 project we finished up a little while ago. The customer actually saw that bike, fell in love with it, and said, that's what I want. How much to build me one of those? And I luckily already had a good donor bike, so we're going to make another one. So it's going to end up being Midnight Blue. It's going to have an English toffee colored tough side seat with a little upsweep, frame hoop, LED lights, black wheels, black engine with some vapor blasting accents, black exhaust with our stainless muffler, battery box, you know, the kind of usual Classic Octane treatment I do on all of these bikes. So we'll see how much I end up filming of this project. I want you guys to leave a comment down below and let me know how much you want to see. I will 100% cover the painting of the gas tank. We're not going to use this one because it's got about a pound of Bondo in it. We're going to use one of my better donor tanks, but I know you guys have been dying for a how-to video on how I paint my tanks. So we'll for sure do that. We'll see what else you guys might want to see. Maybe this is just another one we knock out behind the scenes. So before we get started, I figured I'd give you guys a little bit of an overview of this bike, what we're looking at here. So this is actually a CB500 frame with a 550 motor in it. Somebody's done some modifications to this bike in the past, but nothing crazy and nothing that we can't fix. So the main modifications are, it does have extended front forks and the relocated rear shock. So you see that this is traditionally where the bottom of the rear shock would mount. Back in the 70s and 80s, they would put these sweet relocating brackets on here. So it lowers the back of the bike. The extended forks raise the front and it gives us this like a sweet easy rider stance. Like I guess they're trying to go for a chopper style look. We're going to be ditching all of that and going back to a factory front fork, putting the shocks back where they're supposed to be. The wiring on this bike is all here. It's kind of hacked up, which is pretty common on these bikes. So I always just start with a brand new wiring harness. For the cost of a brand new harness, it saves you, in a lot of time of tracking down people that have just kind of spliced stuff together, and wiring is something that most people aren't terribly comfortable with, which means a lot of bikes end up getting kind of hacked up, and that's something that will easily leave you on the side of the road. Best case scenario, worst case scenario could cause a fire, that kind of stuff. So the engine seems to be in pretty good shape. It feels like it's got good compression, turns over easy, the carbs are on and complete. Which is something I also look for in a donor bike, just because a full set of carbs is relatively expensive to track down for these bikes. It does have 4 open exhausts. We'll be ditching that as well, but it'll work fine for us to get the bike running. So what I need to do now is start the initial checks we always do on a will it run. So I want to see if there's oil in the bike and the condition of that oil. Then we'll start to kind of check out our wiring and see, okay, do we have coils? Are they wired up properly? What are we going to have to makeshift and put together to get this thing to turn over properly? And then we'll go from there. Maybe spray some starter fluid down the carbs and see if it gives us some pops and bangs. Got this thing up in the air, nice comfortable working height. Double check our oil. Definitely got some in it. Doesn't look terrible. I say this every time, but just to reiterate, we are going to replace this, but just to get the bike running, yeah, that should be just fine. Just looking to make sure it's not super milky, like there's a bunch of water in it, and that there's enough to keep us lubricated for the short period of time that this will run before it's all torn apart. All right, now that we've checked that, the wiring is a rat's nest like I mentioned, so let's go over there and just see if we can kind of piece together that there's enough of the wiring to get power to our coils and stuff, or if we need to just start from scratch. I am going to go ahead and pull off the seat and the gas tank as well, just to get it out of our way. So you can get away with pretty minimal wiring to get these bikes to run. All you need is power to your coils, which is a black with a white stripe. That typically runs to one side of your kill switch, and that's what actually kills the bike, is cutting the power to the coils. This one doesn't have any kind of kill switch or anything in the factory location, so I'm not sure where this black with a white stripe is running. So we'll have to trace that and see if it's going to a good, key on or switchable power source. If not, we can just hook it to the positive side of our jump box. We're also looking for the signal wires, yellow and blue in this case, that run down to our points to run 1 and 4 and 2 and 3. For turning the engine over, of course, you can just use the kickstart. If you want to use the starter motor, we're going to need to figure out how our starter solenoid is wired. Typically, it would be, looks like ground on one side, power to the yellow with a red stripe on the other side. I can see that our yellow with a red stripe that would typically run up to the start button is just chopped off in this little nest of wires here. So we can't rely on that, but, and I find this quite frequently on a lot of my projects, somebody has run one of these old school push button starts that literally just jumps the starter solenoid with this huge clunky push button. So that's probably going to work for our Will It Run video. I would never ship a bike like that. I don't like setting these up. I would rather, kind of wire it up the way it's designed to run from the factory, not, kind of go around it for no real reason. So it looks like we probably have enough here to get going. So let me hook up my jump box to our positive and negative wires, make sure that nothing starts smoking or frying, and then we'll hit that button and see if the engine at least turns over. Hooking up this jump box, got the negative hooked up. One thing I just noticed is there's actually no ignition switch. There's no key on this bike. It's been removed at some point. So we're almost certainly going to have to just hardwire our coils. Let me hook this up. This is always the sketchy part because there's a rat's nest of wires and who knows if there's any kinds of shorts or anything. Okay, I think we're gonna be good. Yep, I don't hear any sizzling, anything crazy. So let's hit this button and see if this thing turns over. Nope. Oh, see? See, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I didn't want to use this little button. I don't know if you guys saw that, but this thing just started smoking over here because these are not really designed to carry that current properly. So I should have just trusted my gut and not tried it. Let's just jump it the way we traditionally would. Starting to do a little more digging into our wiring. It looks like our starter solenoid is bad. Tried to just jump start directly to the, give power to the yellow with a red stripe, and we're not getting anything. So I think the actual solenoid itself is bad. So we'll probably just jump it. We can actually either just jump it with a screwdriver or run the positive cable that's running down to the starter motor just straight to the jump box. Again, none of that's suggested, but it'll work for our temporary solution. So what I'm working on now is making sure that we have power to the coils. And this wiring, man, I'm glad I made the decision to just replace it. It's been just hacked together. So this black with a white stripe is supposed to be to our kill switch. Looks like it was just hacked in right here with some electrical tape, some of these blue Home Depot connectors. Nothing says, I'm an amateur electrician than using these on your motorcycle. Don't do it. Get proper bullet connectors. The proper ones are not any more expensive. They're just not available, at Lowe's or Home Depot. So get the right bullet connectors. I think I'll throw a link in the description to the bullet connectors that I run. They're inexpensive, but they're like the same size and diameter and everything at the OEM Honda bullet connectors use. You just have to have the proper crimping tool. And if you're going to wire any amount of your bike, it's worth it just to get the right tools. So I'll be able to just run this straight to a positive source, and that should give us direct power to the coils. So what do you say we hook up a solution to turn the motor over? We run some power to this wire. We'll pull a spark plug, see if we have any spark. See if we can get some spark in this thing. So we got Positive to the starter solenoid. Positive to the coils. Okay. Spark plug right here, resting up against the head. Let's give it a shot. Forgot I disconnected my negative too. Now let's try it. I think my starter solenoid, or my jump box is getting a little bit dead, but I don't know if you guys can see it. We got spark over there. Oh yeah. So we definitely have spark on number 1. Let's go ahead and check number 2 as well. If you guys don't know or haven't seen one of my other videos, these classic Hondas do run, basically number 1 and number 4 are run off the same coil, and number 2 and number 3 are run off the same coil. So if we check number 1 and number 2, in theory it should tell us that both of our coils are operational. So let me pull that plug out. Now we're ready to check spark on number 2, which is going to be this guy. Oh yeah. Got spark on both. I don't even think we're going to have to clean the points on this bike. See, this, unlike the Apocalypse Triumph, so far, and I should probably hesitate to say this bike wants to come back to life. So let's throw these plugs back in, and hell, let's spray some stuff down the carbs. I wish I still had some starting fluid or even some brake parts cleaner or something. I literally don't have anything. So I'm just going to put a little bit of gas in a squirt bottle, squirt it down each carb, and we'll see what it does. I can't hook up my exhaust fan because it's 4 individual exhaust pipes and my exhaust thing is just for 1. So I'm going to open up the garage door here in a second. Should this thing actually fire off, just to get some air moving in here, and then later in the video when we actually clean out the carbs and everything, we'll kind of open it up and run it for a little bit longer. But I just want to see if this is going to be enough to get some pops and bangs. Everything should still be connected. Let's see. You see, I've been working on this thing maybe 15 minutes, and it made that much pops and bangs. I worked on that stinking Triumph for 6 days, probably, and didn't even get this far. This is why I'm a Honda fan. I'm sorry guys, but they just come back to life. Who knows how many years this thing's been sitting dormant, and we didn't have to do anything to this bike other than kind of hot wire some electrical system, and that's it. And it's wanting to come back to life, so that's awesome. I'm pumped. Let's go ahead and pull these carbs off and cross our fingers they're not just full of gunk. So, lesson of the day. If you are in the apocalypse, find a Honda. Better yet, just come to my house, man. I got enough for all of us. Those of you wearing classic octane shirts will, of course, get priority, pick of your motorcycle for our apocalypse motorcycle gang. I am getting off topic now. Overall, these don't look terrible. They're going to clean up pretty nicely. Of course, we'll give them the full vapor blast treatment, rejet them, all that kind of stuff. I do see it's missing 2 of the small nuts on the slide adjusting, or the sync nuts. I don't know what you officially call them, but these little parts that have the little connecting bars are supposed to be a little 8mm nut that goes on there. Doesn't matter, I have tons of spare parts, especially for these carbs, because these are the ones I do the most for mail-in rebuilds. I can pretty much do them with my eyes closed at this point. So let's rip a couple of these bowls off, just so we can really see. And I think it's a good idea to use power tools on this one, because a couple of these screws look a little bit stripped already, which I sometimes replace these with stainless Allen head, just because they're less likely to strip. I'm so stoked that this thing's just coming right back to life. That Triumph has just beaten me up over the last week or so. Oh yeah, look at this. So this tells me one of two things. It was either parked before ethanol fuel was widely used, or the person actually drained the fuel out before the bike sat. The fact that they're this clean on the inside means they definitely were not sitting with ethanol in them. They have 138 are the jet, so pretty factory. We'll switch those to 110 and 40s because we're going to be running pod filters on these. Let's pull another one or two off, just so I don't get ahead of myself saying these things are in great shape and then we find one that's got barnacles growing on it. So far so good. Cool, so instead of boring you guys with me rebuilding these, I will probably just fast forward until they're done. I have a how-to video on exactly how to rebuild these carburetors. I'll throw a card up now for that video. I actually just did a time lapse of me rebuilding a set of carbs just like this the other day. I'm gonna throw that in right now and just imagine it's these carbs. Okay, go. Boom, just like that. I mean, that time lapse was definitely this set of carbs, and that was definitely today. That we know for sure. Overall, they were in pretty decent shape. My gut feeling is that somebody got in here, the last person that owned the bike did a very rough kind of rebuild clean out. We had brand new secondary jets, well, 3 brand new jets, 1 broken jet, and then brand new main jets as well. Nothing else that looked like was touched, so we put in kind of some new pieces, some reused pieces. Overall, they were, like I said, they weren't terrible. I had to steal a return spring with a little pin that holds it, a couple of lock nuts. I think that was it off of some of my spare carbs. So what do you say we throw this back on the bike and see if we can get this thing fired up and actually run for a little bit? Got the carbs back on. I hooked up the very rough throttle just so we have something that we can modulate it with. Fuel's turned on using my auxiliary tank. I get a question every single time I use this. It's just off of Amazon. I'll throw a link in the description to this. It's super helpful for stuff like this where you can't use the gas tank on the bike or you want the gas tank removed. sync the carb, something like that. So fuel's been on for a little while, no leaks or anything, that's good. I am going to flip on our choke. We need to, what was our series of events here? We got battery power plus our power to our coils, which I believe was this wire here. Stick both of these in here. Just like so. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. Let's see if she'll fire up. Definitely should have charged my jump box. Stand by, let me switch out to my other one. New jump box hooked up. Should be good to go. Uh-oh. So starter died on us. Let me turn it over a little bit by hand, see if maybe the little gear in there is just a little bit off. I think our starter might have died. Let's see if we can kickstart it. So obviously it ran a little bit on the rough side. That's just because there's been no tuning whatsoever. No, like, you know, the air mixture screws are just set at kind of a base level. They're bench synced, but you know, there's still a lot to do to make this thing run properly. Go through, adjust the valves. I think we're getting a little bit of a misfire on number 4. It was warming up, but it wasn't quite as hot as the rest of them. But all of that stuff we'll finalize after the bike is built. I just wanted to make sure that this motor is good, you know, for not running for a number of years and, you know, a couple of kickstarts and it firing up and idling and stuff. The way it did, I'm happy with that. That's a success in my book. Well, I'm pretty stoked about that. Excuse the background noise. I still do have a fan running to try and get some air circulating through the shop so I don't die of carbon monoxide poisoning. But I mean, this is why I love classic Hondas, man. Every single Honda that I have tried to get running has run. We're literally 100% success rate right now because they're just very reliable, well-built bikes, and you know, that's kind of why they're near and dear to my heart. So like I mentioned earlier in the video, I would love if you guys could leave some comments below. I'm gonna actually upload this video this afternoon, so this is gonna be real time on this build. If you guys could tell me what you want to see. I am going to do the how-to video on painting the gas tank like I mentioned. I'm probably going to put together like a time-lapse style video for this entire build. I'll just kind of time-lapse every day I'm working on the bike, put it all into one, you know, maybe 10-minute video at the end. But let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see, because this isn't going to be really any different than the last couple of bikes that I've built. We are kind of getting into building a lot of similar bikes. Luckily, as a business, that's kind of the best case scenario because it's bikes that I can build with my eyes closed. I have tons of spare parts and that kind of stuff. But as I've mentioned, you know, before we started the last build, it doesn't necessarily lend itself to a bunch of kind of new and interesting content. So I'm constantly reading all the comments and taking into consideration what you guys want to see. So let me know in the comments below and I will try to accommodate. So I appreciate you guys watching. We are 100% success rate on Honda Will It Run videos. We'll have to challenge ourselves again very soon. I actually have a build in the works with a customer right now that is a bike that is totally different than anything I've worked on before. So let's hope that that build continues to go forward. I got to locate one. They're kind of hard to find. So we'll get more info on that when the time comes. Appreciate you guys watching as always. Thanks for liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. I'll see you guys soon.